Hello and welcome to this Gorilla application video. In this video we want to show you how you can get access from the iPhone to a Simatic S7 PLC from Siemens by using the Gorilla application. Before we start, you have to know that you can download the PLC project from our webshop. We provided a link below the video, and if you register to the webshop you can download the project for free. To open the project, you will need the development tool TIA Portal version 14 from Siemens. And of course you can download the Gorilla application from the Apple Store. Okay, so let's open the development tool TIA Portal. Here I already opened the project test package. On the left side you see the project tree. There are two PLCs projected. One is a real hardware S7 1200 PLC, and the second is a software PLC. Both have almost the same source code, but for this demonstration we are working with the software PLC. In this project we have an organization block and a folder called Gorilla. The Gorilla folder consists of one function and 3 data blocks. Then we have some user-defined data types in the PLC data type section. This is basically all we need for the Gorilla application to establish a connection between the iPhone and the PLC. The procedure is based on the following principle. When the Gorilla application starts on the iPhone, it will first interact with the login data block. Here the iPhone asks for permission to access the PLC. If the PLC accepts it, it will send the number of the interface data block back to the iPhone. When the login was successful, the iPhone will exclusively interact with the interface data block. So it is very important that the Gorilla application knows which is the login data block. This information can be found within the connection settings of the Gorilla application. Let's check this out. We start the Gorilla application and take a look at Settings, Connection, Test Package. Here we find an entry called Initialization Data Block and the number 10,001. This number is the same number as our login data block within the PLC project. Okay, now let's take a closer look on the login process. First I open the organization block 1. Here we use the network to call the function block Gorilla Login. Let's take a look at function block Login. I will not explain any line of code within this function, because this is very straightforward. To understand what this code is doing, I will explain it entirely on the login data block. Here we find the variable Gorilla Login. This variable is a certain data type which we find in the folder PLC data types. When we expand this variable, we see two sections, a receive area and a send area. The iPhone sends data to the receive area and the PLC sends data back to the iPhone within the send area. I expand the receive area. As soon as the Gorilla app is started, it sends the following login information to the PLC. These are the Gorilla controller ID. This is a unique number which can be found in the Gorilla application settings. Then the version number of the Gorilla application and the bit access required. That's all. When the PLC receives the bit access required, it will answer with the following information in the send area. First, it mirrors back the Gorilla controller ID, then the number of the interface data block. There could be two different data blocks for send and receive, but in our case we use the same data block. An offset where the receive and send section starts, and at least the bit access guaranteed for a successful login. As soon as the Gorilla app receives this information, it will correspond only with the interface data block. Let's open the interface data block. Here we find the variable Gorilla Interface 1. The data type of this variable is also a fixed data structure which we can find in the PLC data types. As a side note, you could copy the variable Gorilla Interface 1 and name it to Gorilla Interface 2, Gorilla Interface 3, and so on. So it is possible that multiple iPhones can control your PLC simultaneously. When we expand the Gorilla interface, we find also the two sections, one receive and one send section. The Gorilla app sends the following information to the PLC. It sends some bits describing the application state of the Gorilla app, for example a watchdog which toggles with every cycle. Or if we shake our iPhone, it will send the bit shake gesture to the PLC. Let's try this out and shake our iPhone. You see, the bit shake gesture changed to true. The PLC has to acknowledge the shake gesture to reset this bit back to false. The other bits are described in the documentation. Some of them are currently not used. Then we have some further information. The controller ID, the geolocation of the iPhone in longitude and latitude, but this works only when you enable geolocation settings for the Gorilla app on your iPhone. If you enter the longitude and latitude values into Google Maps, you should be able to track my current location. Don't forget to put a point between the numbers, so you have 6 decimals. It also sends the X, Y, and Z acceleration data of your iPhone. Imagine the possibilities. You can control your PLC depending on the inclination angle of your iPhone. We have another video on our Gorilla YouTube channel where we demonstrate the usage of this feature. Check it out. Then of course it will send the push button state. For example, when I press push button 1, we see how the byte changes from 0 to 1 and back. When we move the slider, we see the change in the slider value from 1 to 100. Now let's take a look into the send section. The PLC sends its state bits to the iPhone. For example, vibration. If the PLC sends this bit, your iPhone will vibrate. Then we have 2 acknowledge bits. The first will acknowledge the shake gesture, which I mentioned earlier. The second will acknowledge the change of the slider value. The other bits are described in the documentation. Now we come to the interesting part, the customization of the push buttons. Let's have a look at push button 4 on the Gorilla app. This button is grayed out and it cannot be pressed, while the other ones can be pressed. This behavior can be customized for each button. For that, we open the configuration of button 4. Like you can see, there is only one bit set. It's the visibility bit. I can set this bit to false and the button vanishes completely. We can bring it back when we set the bit back to true. If we try to tap the button 4, nothing happens because it's disabled. You can recognize this because it's grayed out. To enable the button, we set the enabled bit to true. Now we are able to tap the button. The text of the button itself can be changed in the text section. Be advised that the maximum text length is 18 characters. Right now the button text is button 4. Let's change it to something else. You see, the PLC customizes the look and feel of the Gorilla application. We can also change the text color. Let's change it to green. If we set the bit color 0 to 1, the text color changes to green. So for example, the user can see that an output state is false when the text color is red, or the output state is true with the text color is green. Currently, the colors red, green, blue and yellow are available. How to set these colors you can check out in the documentation. Okay, what else do we have? There is the bit state. What we have to do here is to mirror the push button state from the receive area to the push button state in the send area. This is necessary that the next 2 bits work correctly. These two bits are called vibrate on pressed and vibrate on released. Together with the state bit, the iPhone is able to create a force feedback to the user. Imagine you have a slow connection from the iPhone to your PLC. When we press the button, it can take some time until the PLC recognizes that the button has been pressed. Then, when the PLC sends the button state back to the iPhone, we can create a force feedback so that the user feels that the PLC understood the button pressed command. So we can create a force feedback on a rising edge when we press a push button, and we can create a force feedback on a falling edge when we release the push button, or even both. Okay, now we come to the slider. I expand the slider configuration. Like the push button, it is possible to hide or to show the slider with the visibility bit. And to enable the slider with the enable bit. And of course, we can modify the slider text. We can adjust the range of the slider with slider minimum value and slider maximum value. Now we're able to move the slider in this new range. To send the slider value back to the iPhone, we have to set the value in the slider value section. You see how the slider value changed accordingly. It is also possible to adjust real values by changing the data type from integer to real. We can transform our slider into a stepper. For that, we set the bit stepper on true. In this case, it is also necessary to set a slider step value in slider step. When we tap the stepper, the value will increase or decrease accordingly. At least we have the information lines. If we take a look at the iPhone and change to the data section, we see 10 information lines. Let's change the text of information line 2. Also here, the maximum characters are 18. Then we can change the value of information line 2. And we can change the data type of the information line. Right now we can display the following types. Character will display maximum 4 characters, integer, date, time, and real. So we are already at the end of our presentation. I hope it was helpful and you are able to create your own project using the Gorilla application. If you have questions, please post them in the comment section below this video or give us feedback by email. Thank you for watching and goodbye.